What's going on, all you Minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at all these collected editions coming out from Marvel this week. So, stay tuned. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these collected editions. These books are due out in the direct market and book market on October 13th. So yeah, because of a different distributor, we do have the same date now for book and direct market. And today we're going to be looking at some Mighty Marvel Masterworks, a couple of trades, and of course a classic Marvel Masterworks. So we'll kick it off with the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. By the way, for those asking where the review of the Avengers Mighty Marvel Masterworks is when we do the family review, that is coming this week. We've already filmed it. It's just that my kids went back to school. We're just getting readjusted to a new schedule, and they're currently reading Journey into Mystery, or the Thor Mighty Marvel Masterworks. I always leave timestamps in the description of the video if you want to jump around and skip any of this, or if only one book interests you, or if all of them interest you. But let's go ahead and get started. So, kicking off the video, we are talking about the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. On the right-hand side, you have the direct market cover. On the left here is the standard edition cover. This direct market cover, of course, drawn by Jack the King Kirby, and this standard edition cover by Michael Cho, who has been supplying all the covers for the standard editions. Now, the thing about the Mighty Marvel Masterworks is that they do have different spines and different backs. For example, this is the direct market back and the standard edition back. Standard editions have a volume number based on the title. So this is the Mighty Thor Volume 1, whereas the Mighty Marvel Masterworks are limited, and this states this is a Volume 5 of a special limited printing of the collector's edition. So it doesn't have a Volume 1, but I assume most people know the Journey into Mystery. This is where it all starts. Now, we've got a few more that I got to announce. We've got Doctor Strange. We've got the Incredible Hulk coming out in a couple of weeks. And actually, the Incredible Hulk is a little bit thinner. This one has like 6 issues collected in there, but these are thick. So this collects Journey into Mystery 83 to 100. And my daughters were like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of reading. And I told them, no. Journey into Mystery was a shared title. There were other characters that appeared in Journey into Mystery, and Thor was just part of it. So not all these issues here are 24 pages. But here you have the artwork of Jack Kirby. Eventually, Don Heck takes over the book for a while. You have Stan Lee, Larry Lieber. And you have the first appearance, of course, of Loki, Radioactive Man. I'm going to make that joke when we talk about this. And bring it back to The Simpsons, because my kids love The Simpsons. But it's going to be interesting to see what they think of this era of Marvel Comics. Because to me, I always thought of like, this was so heavy with the dialogue, and it just reminded me of like Shakespearean English, the way that the script was written. But this is the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. Again, these are a little bit smaller than your trade paperbacks. So the trade paperbacks have a trim size of a standard comic book, whereas these are a little bit smaller. But the price is also cheaper. These are $15.99 each. And I was right, these do have 280 pages. That's how many pages are collected within these two trades. Next up is Avengers Mech Strike. It's so ridiculous, I know, but for some reason I had a lot of fun with this particular trade. This one retails for $15.99 and collects Avengers Mech Strike 1 through 5. I could have sworn they did something similar to this years ago. I think during the New Avengers era, they did something very similar. But apparently these are based on the toy line, the Avengers Mech Strike. So it was time to make a comic book adaptation of the toy line. And I know it seems ridiculous, but you have Jed MacKay writing the story, and you have Carlos Magno doing the artwork. And Carlos Magno's artwork is freaking awesome. I'm not sure what they have him working on now, but I remember his artwork in the Avengers Empire story. He also did some stuff in the Invader story with Chip Zdarsky. But his art is so freaking amazing. Look at that. That is beautiful. So you have the Avengers. You have 8 core Avengers taking on this biomechanoid creature. So it's got mechanical parts. It's got flesh. They don't know exactly what it is or where it came from. So each one of them try to take it down. And of course, being the Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, they consider this a huge threat. So even Tony Stark can't figure it out what exactly is happening until it eats T'Challa. But T'Challa is actually, this is part of his plan. He wants to get eaten by this creature. So what ends up happening is that the creature ends up getting destroyed from the inside, of course with a little help from Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And it turns out that the creature couldn't take the vibranium that was on T'Challa. So Tony Stark seems to think, well, there's going to be more. We got to do something about this. There's going to be more of these mechanoid creatures, and it's going to be the end of time if these creatures come and take over. Because they're able to absorb not just mechanical parts, but also energy from people. And of course, who's got one of the biggest energy is the Incredible Hulk with his gamma ray. So what he does, this is so freaking ridiculous, but I don't care, is he gives them all this little armband here. And they're like, well, what is this? What's going on? So all 8 of these characters, so you have Spider-Man, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow, Thor, and Iron Man. He tells them to suit up because they will all have their own mech armor. And the mech armor is made out of vibranium. And I know it's ridiculous because you're like, what? How in the hell did Tony Stark have enough time to make mech armor for each of these characters? Well, as Tony Stark says, some people golf, some people do paint by numbers, and some people plan for the end of the world. What? Who sits? Of course he does. Of course he does. I always think of Batman memorizing the subway tunnels of Gotham in his spare time. These people don't have spare times, but anyway, they try out their suits. It's time to break them in properly. So they all have their own suits designated to them. And, of course, we have more biomechanoid creatures come in. Now, this is what I think of, like, comics. This is what I want to see in comics from time to time. I need a break from all the dark and gritty stuff that's out there, especially this time of year. I'm reading a lot of dark stuff, getting ready for a lot of my videos coming up for October. So this was a nice little breath of fresh air, if you will. It's ridiculous. Yes, it's a toy line, but then again, if you think about it, Secret Wars was meant to sell toys too. Now, there is more to the story than this, but I can't reveal who the villain is or who they end up teaming up with to defeat the villain. But what I do want to show is, holy crap, can this guy, Carlos Magno, draw some dinosaurs? Okay, so let's skip a little bit to issue 3, skipping the big spoiler of issue 2. But can somebody please give this man a job on Kazar? Look at that. Look at the detail, the scales. This is amazing. This is the kind of stuff I want to see in oversized format. Yes, and, you know, you can ignore the giant robots, but appreciate the flesh and skin and scales on these dinosaurs. That is freaking badass. Like, okay, 12-year-old Omar, Avengers, giant robots, and dinosaurs? I'd be in heaven. So this book retails for $15.99. It has 112 pages. Let's look in the back here. I think the extras do spoil something, but I can at least show this page here on the right-hand side with all the covers, and at least the 2 variants up at the top. And this is the part of the video where you want to pause and check out all the spines of the books coming out this week. Well, with the exception of Ghost Rider, because I think that has been delayed until later in the month. But they're still trying to get it out in October. Next up is my pick of the week. This is Spider-Man Spider Shadow. This book was everything I wanted in a Spider-Man what-if type of story. So this is a what-if miniseries. As a matter of fact, I think Chip Zdarsky designed that logo. So this is written by Chip Zdarsky. It's got artwork in here by Pasquale Ferri and Matthew Hollingworth, doing the actual colors. So this is an interesting what-if type of story, because this is a mini-series. And what if were usually one-shots or single issues that took a very well-known story or character and spun it. And I'm sure most people are familiar with the concept now because of the TV show, even though the TV show ended up becoming Exiles instead of What If. But hey, whatever. At least we're getting some omnis out of them. So this is a really interesting premise because it's one we've seen before. We've seen Spider-Man and possible stories where he merged with the symbiote and decided to keep it. We've seen alternate story arcs with it. But what's interesting about this is that this takes us back to Amazing Spider-Man 252 to like 258. That era of Spider-Man where he was donning the costume and he started realizing that something was off. He couldn't sleep, he was tired all the time until he put this costume on. He became really aware and was more active and had more energy whenever the black costume was on. And of course that's because it's an alien costume. Now, that's what he thought. He was like, well, this is probably just some kind of alien clothing that is giving me this energy. So he keeps having this reoccurring nightmares about not being able to save those that he loves, and of course Gwen Stacy being a big part of that. He wakes up right here in a nightmare and accidentally pushes Mary Jane, which he could have easily have killed her, but she is saved by her amazing reflexes. And the important thing to note about this era, too, is that this is after the proposal, after she turned him down. This is also during the time when Aunt May and Peter weren't really in speaking terms because he had dropped out of college. So I will say you will get so much more out of this if you are familiar with that era of Spider-Man. A lot of this stuff has been collected in the Alien Costume Saga. Some of it collected in the towards the end of the Hobgoblin Saga. Now, what's really cool about this, though, is that you don't need to have read that. You don't need to have read any of those Spider-Man stories. You just have to have a basic understanding of who Spider-Man is, and of course, his morals that were handed down to him by Uncle Ben. And that comes into play here. So, he ends up, this is actually something that happened in the original series, where he's going to go see Reed Richards, and the costume just stops giving him webbing. The costume is refusing to take him over there, so he's like, that's really weird. On top of that, of falling out of this building, he's also attacked by the Hobgoblin. So, in this, he snaps. In this particular volume, he snaps. We've seen him snap in The Death of Jinji Wolf, for example. But in this, he lets almost the costume take over. And what happens is that he unmasks the Hobgoblin and finds out who his identity is. Now, that is the thing that kind of sucks if you've not read the Hobgoblin Saga, because one of the biggest things and the biggest mysteries about that is the whole revelation of who the Hobgoblin was. So if you've not read that, this will spoil it for you, so I am going to skip that page. So it's revealed who the Hobgoblin was, and the Hobgoblin kind of snaps. He's like, wait a minute, this completely changes everything. So he starts stalking Spider-Man and follows him home to Aunt May's house. And something horrible and tragic happens here that makes Peter Parker / Spider-Man snap. So in the aftermath of this something horrible happening, you start seeing the costume change. You start seeing him look more like Venom. He never calls himself Venom, but you start seeing this change happen. And not just physically happening to him, but also mentally. This is where he snaps. And he decides that he is tired of having mercy on these villains, that he keeps throwing them back in jail, that they keep coming out and hurting the ones that he loves. So the symbiote takes over and kills the Hobgoblin. Now that changes everything. That goes from Spider-Man with great power comes great responsibility to, with great power, we're gonna go kick some ass and take care of these villains my way. So leading into issue number 2, which is where Wilson Fisk hires a bunch of thugs, and oh man, this scene right here where he just snaps and breaks Jay Jonah's hands, that is rough. But yes, Kingpin ends up hiring a bunch of thugs to go after him, and this is a really creepy scene right here where she catches him sleeping, and he's sleeping like that. Visually, that is awesome. You know, Pasquale Ferry is one of these artists that he's kind of hit and miss. Some of his stuff is great. Love the stuff that he did with Black Bolt. And this stuff right here is solid. It really fits the tone of the book. But what was I? Where the hell was I? Oh, yes. Kingpin hires Scorpion and Shocker. You see the aftermath of that. Holy crap, this gets dark. And we get a whole new Sinister Six in here. And I'm not going to reveal who the Sinister Six are. And the big thing in here is, of course, during this whole time, and this really happened in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man, is that he is trying to go see Dr. Richards to try to see what exactly this suit is, to try to see if he can get it off of him. And there's a bit of a twist to that particular story here with the Fantastic Four. This was a fun book. This was great. It's dark. It's one that I highly recommend if you're a fan of Spider-Man, or even if you've read very little Spider-Man. This shows you the possibilities of what Spider-Man or Peter Parker could have done had he let the costume take over. But the book retails for $17.99, collects all 4 issues of this miniseries, and has 128 pages. Let's look at the extras here. So we do have some variants, and some of the other variants are on the opposite side of the standard edition covers. But here are some of the variants. Last but certainly not least is Ghost Rider, Marvel Masterworks, Volume 3. This is the standard edition cover, and of course the direct market cover will also come out on the same day. Here are some of the covers that are collected in here. The book retails for $75. And under the dust jacket is the usual leather look to it with Ghost Rider right there, as well as on the spine, and nothing really on the back. So let's go ahead and get this open and talk about this particular era. This beautiful bookend pages there. Ghost Rider, Marvel Masterworks presents Volume 3. Collecting issues 21 through 35 of Ghost Rider, as well as the Marvel Premiere number 28. And here are the credits. So you have a lot of Dons working on this. That is one thing I remember about this. You have Don Glut, Don Perlin, Don Heck. You also have Jim Shooter, Jim Starlin writing the stories, Jerry Conway. And you have an introduction here by Ralph Macchio, who, after Stan Lee, I think is the longest running editor at Marvel Comics. He has played many roles. He also wrote a bunch of comics, has been a mentor to a lot of editors at Marvel. He's all around just a very knowledgeable guy. And he talks about his experiences here with Ghost Rider. Now, this stuff, I've not read 95% of the stuff that's in here. I've read just a little bit of it, so it was nice to read it for the first time. So it kicks off with this Jerry Conway story with Gil Kane, and it shows him just fighting Gladiator and eventually the Eel. So, well-established Marvel villains, and you have artwork in here by Gil Kane. And eventually, one thing I didn't know about this era is this is where you found, you have the Enforcer kind of building himself up. You see him come in a couple of issues later. But this is where you find, yes, Karen Page. I had no idea that she was hanging out with Johnny Blaze. So after she left to become a movie star in the pages of Daredevil, apparently this is where you see her. And she is working in Hollywood, or in Vegas. But this is all before Born Again, so you don't see her again until Born Again. I had no idea about that. There's the Enforcer right there, who's a new character, a new villain. There was a Champions team-up, and this is the aftermath of the Champions team-up right here. And this is where he gets to fight the Water Wizard. So it feels like this particular volume, at least compared to the other ones, they want to establish Ghost Rider as this Marvel character that can not just go after your usual thugs and scare the living crap out of them, but also affect a bunch of the villains that have been around in the Marvel Universe for a while. So he does get to fight quite a number of them. The Enforcer again making his appearance. And we get some pretty interesting stories in here. There's one about aliens. There's Malice right there. One of my favorite ones is we'll get to it. It's at the very end. But in this issue right here of Ghost Rider, number 27, not only did we get Hawkeye and Two Gun Kid as guest stars, but this is where they stop using the Now at Last, the new Ghost Rider title up at the top. So now it just becomes Ghost Rider and then versus whomever he's fighting. But this does have Hawkeye and Two Gun Kid. You see the orb show up here. And I believe in this particular issue, right here, 26, is when you get Don Perlin's artwork. So he comes in and becomes the regular penciler on the book. At least he stayed until the end of this one, with the exception of the fill-in issue. But just reading the little intro, seems like a lot of people weren't really happy at first with his take on Johnny Blaze. And I can kind of see that. His art style is a lot more simpler. But I think it gets the job done. And honestly, it really depends on who's inking him too. Usually when he inks himself, it looks a lot more detailed. Here's the 3-issue arc with Doctor Strange against Dormammu. There's what I like to call a super sexy fight between him and Doctor Strange, where Doctor Strange, for no reason at all, starts stripping, and they start just beating the crap out of each other. Yeah, right here. Super sexy fight with Doctor Strange. Gotta have that fan service. Alright, and then we get this issue right here. This is the Bounty Hunter issue, which he's been kind of in the epilogues and interludes from the previous issues, but you actually see him confront Ghost Rider, and you get to find out his origin, which leads into this, yes, this right here. I didn't expect to see him fighting aliens, but my favorite issue by far in this particular collection is this one right here. This is written by Jim Starlin, who also does the layouts, and then you have a bunch of different people doing the finishes and inks. So this is Ghost Rider, and he's racing against Death. So Death challenges him to a race, and there are 3 different races. And of course, with this particular character wanting to race you, it's not just about how fast you are, but how cunning and smart you can be to outwit him. So this is a really interesting story. So yes, there's 3 people that he has to save, and you can find out who. One of them is, it's dark, man. One of them is a little girl. But I really dug this. I really thought this story was awesome. I really liked the artwork in here, though his bike is a little outdated. I think that was the previous bike that he had. And then we get this story right here, the Marvel Premiere story, which was featured in the Morbius Omnibus, I believe. And this is the one with Starseed, where he's able to gift these creatures of the night, like, their bodies back. So Man-Thing becomes Ted Sallis, Werewolf by Night becomes Jack Russell, and everybody gets to turn back to their human side. Michael Morbius comes back, Johnny Blaze comes back, but it's everything at a cost. And speaking of Werewolf by Night, that is one thing that I forgot to note, is that's where Don Perlin came from. He had been working on Werewolf by Night before he took over Ghost Rider. And then, of course, we get some extras. In the back here, we get this house ad. We get original cover art. There's even a page in here, I believe, by Jim Starlin that had to be updated, so it was unused. So here's some more original artwork. Beautiful covers. Oh, I didn't even talk about the covers, because there's covers in here by George Perez, Ernie Chan, but then you get 2 covers here by Jack Kirby. 21 and 22 feature a cover by Jack the King Kirby and his take on Old Flaming Skull here. So that's really cool. I didn't even know he drew Ghost Rider at any point. But in the back, let's go here again. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So this is Ghost Rider. Apparently this story by Jim Starlin was supposed to have taken place years before, or a few months before this particular issue came out, issue 35. So there's the unused cover by Jim Starlin, and then of course the biographies. The book, like I mentioned, retails for $75, and it has 312 pages. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely in an excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collected editions. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're picking up. Are you a fan of the Marvel Masterworks and you have been collecting them from day one, or for a few years? Are you waiting for an oversized hardcover of the Spider-Man Spider Shadow because we got a Spider-Man Life Story oversized hardcover? And hopefully one day we'll get this in oversized hardcover. And what you thought of the mighty Marvel Masterworks, if you've been picking them up. And come on, Mech Strike, Avengers, giant robot suits, Surely I can't be the only guy that was excited to read that. It was a fun book. Alright, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and ring that bell for notifications. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel, and more importantly, everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and much love.